Many of you probably don't know that Maureen and I go back, we think, to the late 1990s in our history. And we were both colleagues and friends, as well as some of you in the audience, in New Jersey when we were CNOs. And Maureen was actually president of ONL-NJ, which it was ONEANJ, but now it's ONL-NJ at the time, and I was the incoming president behind her, the president-elect. And I think that's when we really got a chance to get to know each other. So I just wanted to bring you back to those days, Maureen, and ask you, what were some thoughts that you had from our early days together and that time of our careers?
It's funny that is such a flashback to New Jersey days, but I think for us, I mean, we went through a lot, president-elect for ONL at the time, NJ. We were actually separate, and at that time, we wanted to have more of what AONE at the time had with the relationship with AHA. So we ended up firing our management company that had almost bankrupted us. And we then got together with the New Jersey Hospital Association and started negotiating with them how we would become a part of them. And actually, it went pretty smooth. They were familiar with the relationship from a national perspective. And it really gave us a seat at that table. So that was great. We were automatically on their board of trustees there. And so things started to get going for us, and our membership started to grow. So that was our big hurdle when we came together.
And we talk about the collegiality that we had in our state. And, I think it's true for nurses everywhere. But, those were the days when we started to see the billboards of, hospitals competing against each other. So, New Jersey obviously is a pretty small state in size. And you couldn't go too far without seeing a billboard, lauding their quality ratings, or, everybody's, there's great competition from that perspective. Talk a little bit about, the competition and the collegiality that we felt as nurse leaders.
Well, I think for us, we all came together because we were all kind of battling the same thing, not too unlike what we're all dealing with today, right? I mean, it's like a flashback. I feel like we're back to the future again with nursing shortages and things like that. But as nurse leaders, we really did come together. We wanted to work with each other and not against each other. So we did different coalitions to work together on different, problems or things that existed. We actually, too, expanded, if you remember, and I don't see her here, but Roseanne Rosso, who was president of the New York, ONL, New York at the time, she and I both ended up doing a shoot together, and we were cover girls for the nursing spectrum, which was really pretty cool. But we started doing some sessions together, actually, because we wanted to broaden, what we were dealing with in New Jersey. There was activity going on in New York that we wanted to be a part of. They were pushing for the BSN in 10, and that was something that we were looking at the same time. So from a collegiality and working together, we were going beyond our state lines.
Yeah. I think one of the benefits that we had as well, we talked at the affiliate meeting yesterday, maybe some of you were there, there's some states that are very large, and there's different districts and regions within each state, and we had the benefit of meeting in Princeton. And it was probably no more than an hour and a half for anybody in the state to travel there, so we were able to work together. So I think, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the secret sauce of how we, how we really did connect.
So I would say, when Rob and I were chit-chatting before, for me, being part of ONL-NJ at the time was really my growth in leadership, because I remember a colleague, Mary Ellen Bonchek, who said, you can develop yourself within an organization, but if you really want to grow as a leader, you need to get outside of your four walls. And that's when I started getting involved at the state level. And I think back of the nurse leaders, the Pat Kavanaugh, and, Roseanne Rosso and others. There were just so many, I call them giants of nursing. I mean, they truly had such an impact on me and my growth and development. And they really sincerely wanted to see you grow and develop. And we just had some like really great conversations. And then the networking, things that you would never really tell anybody within your four walls about your struggles. You could always go outside, and it was a safe place to go and talk to colleagues who had sometimes many more years experience than you did and offer some really sage advice. So that, I just remember at the time, like we were very, very tight, a tight group.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to some of our challenges beside the financial ones. I mean, we had significant issues that we dealt with as a group.
Yeah, the ratio thing, I know we all love that. The ratio thing was really kicking up. I mean, we happened to have a lot of outside influence in the state of New Jersey. And, you know, we also at the time, if you recall, we did have the most magnet hospitals too.
Yes, we did.
So there was, you know, a very high standard in the state, and us nurse leaders were very competitive with one another. But I would say, I think for us, the ratios, and for myself too, I needed to get educated on the whole political side of the world. I mean, that was something that we kind of just didn't deal with a lot. So, and they didn't know who we were. The politicians didn't know who we were, so there was no connection. If some bills were coming up, be it staffing or something else that impacted patient care or nursing, they didn't know about us. So we made sure, and starting with Robin and I, going out and meeting all of the different political leaders and introducing them to our organization, and that making sure that if they had any issues, you know, that was going to touch anything related to patient care, to please pull us in, because we had a wealth of knowledge related to some of the issues that they were pushing through. Because I think one of them, they did end up doing one bill, I think, where we ended up having to post ratios on units. So
yeah, it's actually very similar to some of the legislation that is being proposed in other states today, and that's going back probably 20 years.
Yes.
So, we had some experience in the
Just keeps
advocacy
coming
realm.
around.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, some things just never, never die.
No.
From the perspective of mentorship, I know you mentioned, and one of the things I know that is very important to you personally is, you know, we've learned from so many, and now it's our time to give back.
Right.
So talk a little bit about how you're mentoring.
How I'm mentoring. I mean, it's what I love to do, right? It's always about giving back. And I think for us as leaders, sometimes we can be scary to some of our new nurse leaders. So I think just by being present, and I think the conversation this morning was great about being vulnerable too, because we're not perfect, right? And we make mistakes. And I think when we show that vulnerability, it allows whoever we are trying to mentor to open up more and have that good, honest exchange of information and feedback that you can give. So I mean, I try to be present. I like to get out. I know I'm looking at some of my leaders. I round and try to engage the nursing leaders as much as I can about what's on their mind, how can we, support them. And we actually have a nurse manager enterprise-wide council. So we have representation from every single facility within Atrium Health. And we come together on a quarterly basis, and we talk about what their issues are and things like that. Or, if it is a mentoring moment that they need, we try to match up folks as well. So I would say all of my chief nurses and others within my corporate support team are all mentors. They do it. It comes natural. And so we like to lift each other up. We want to see each other succeed. So.
Yeah. So what do you think we need to do in the immediate future to really help support our emerging nurse leaders?
I'm most concerned about well-being right now for our nurse leaders. I was not at the front line with them. I did round, but very different experience, and I could see it in their eyes and on their faces, everything that they've just been through. And so, within our organization, I'm trying to see what can we do to support, one, their well-being. We talk about our nurses getting breaks, right? Whoever relieves the nurse managers for their breaks or for their lunches, right? They're probably eating at their desk on the run or whatever. So We've done different things. I think Rob Rose, a while back before COVID, we brought in the Day of Reflection. Of course, that kind of went on hold when all things went COVID, and so many of our nurse leaders were actually in staffing. But we're resurrecting that, and we're looking at some other things that we can do to support our nurse leaders. You know, one from an education perspective, but mostly from the work environment. What can we do to alleviate some of the stuff that they're bogged down with, be it payroll or supply chain management or whatever it is. So we're looking at different options and different positions to put in place to support them.
Those seem like great options and the things that really do make a difference right now. Longer term, what do you think we need to do to really build the pathway for nurses to want to be nurse leaders?
You know, the one thing that I'm always, kind of baffled as we think about it, how do we all come up, right? We're staff nurses, then we're great charge nurses, and then we're like clinical leaders or clinical supervisors, and then you're so awesome, you're it. You're the nurse manager and you're it. And I really think that we need to introduce that level of education much sooner on. I mean, we started with our clinical supervisors, getting them into, based on AONL's competencies, some training on an ongoing basis all year long. And of course, most of it now is virtual, but that works well too. But really, I think the sooner we can get to our nurses, because I look at every nurse as a leader, and we can start to give them some of that education, then I think that will be very beneficial for them when they actually step into the role, as opposed to, oh, now you're it, and oh, by the way, there's a program that we're going to have to put you through. So I just think we need to start earlier.
So let's talk about you a little bit.
Let's not.
So what fills your cup? How are you doing it?
So a couple of things. I have to practice what I preach on well-being. So a few years ago, started walking, and I'm an avid walker. I walk rain, shine, you name it. It's freezing out. I just wear layers, but I walk 5 miles every morning. And that really has kept, especially doing a lot of the virtual and you're in front of the computer screen all day, I just need to get my mind in a good place. And I tell my leaders too, you need to, and it used to drive my husband crazy because he'd see me like a crazy person doing these hours, and he goes, who controls your calendar? And I'm like, well, not me, and things just keep landing on it. But I said, you know what, it's time to take a little bit more control over my life and myself, and if I can't do that and model that, then what message am I sending to my leaders, right? That, take care of others, but don't take care of yourself. So that, I think, is really critically important. And then what fills my bucket is when I go and I round and I get to recognize nurse leaders and their teams. And we've really stepped that up a bit this year. We have a Nursing Stars program where you can make donations to our nursing fund, and then you get the stars. And then I actually go out and I ask the chief nurses, who do you want to recognize? And they usually give me a really nice write-up of, what has gone on with that nurse or that nurse leader. And we pull the team together and we recognize them. So for me, that's filling my cup up.
That's great.
Yeah.
So we did that little exercise this morning about, envisioning one person who's had a lot of impact. I don't know if you were in the audience at that point or if you were backstage, but yeah, okay. So do you want to share who you thought about?
Well, it's tough, and you heard me earlier. I mean, I thought of my husband, right? Barry, because he was a physician, and he always, I don't think I would be where I am without him. I mean, you can't have 4 kids and not have a partner that picks up a lot of the extra work in the house. So he was always so supportive of me, and always, making sure that I was able to continue my education. He helped support me with that, and so I immediately thought of him, and I knew he would be smiling down, because you need that kind of partnership in life, especially if you want to have your kids, right? I love having my children, but you can't do it all. We're not, as much as he used to say, I know you think you're Superwoman, but you're not. And I'm like, yes, thank you, got it. So, but we try, right? We try really hard, so.
We all try.
Yeah.
So I think any last words before we turn to Q&A and have some dialogue?
Just that I would say, one, it's great to be here in person again. I think for me, the best part of the organization is when we come together like this and we get to, see each other and, hug each other, because we're huggers. But you need that energy from each other, and you need that kind of support. And so I always used to love and look forward to coming to these events. One, listening to the speaker this morning, you always walk out knowing something more than you did, when you walked in. But two, just to get to see all of my colleagues that I only get to see maybe once a year in person is just the best of the best. So.
Thank you, Maureen.
Yep.